Hey guys, I'm James from Windows Protocol, and I'm swinging into action with a quick review of the 3 new web warriors that have been revealed for Marvel Crisis Protocol. So, without further ado, let's webline their cards and see what AMG has cooked up for us. Okay, fine, I'll stop with the puns. Let's get into it. First off, let's look at Spider-Ham Peter Porker, a new 2-threat coming to the game. Probably, potentially, the final 2-threat to come to MCP. Time will tell, but I just know that they will be incredibly few and far between if there are any more after him. It's a pretty straightforward stat line, but the biggest thing to note is that he is size 1, which means he can sit behind any terrain for at least cover, if not fully hidden out of line of sight, similar to Rocket Raccoon. Let's take a look at his attacks. Porker Hijinks is a range 2 physical attack with a myriad of triggers that will most likely never see all hit at once. Probably. But each one has a unique effect that could be fun. But honestly, you're more likely to be using his range 4 physical attack, Here's Pie in Your Eye, passing out shock from afar. Who's Calling You a Cartoon is Spider-Ham's Suspender that can pass out stagger if this target has shock and stun. Not an impossible situation to occur. Nevertheless, probably unlikely you're playing Porker to fish for that stagger unless something wild has occurred throughout your game. Web Yoink has some unique flavor for a range 4 size 3 push, but the randomness potentially means Spider-Ham is pushed instead. With some clever positioning, even with the failure, Spider-Ham should probably still try and fish for the size 3 push though. Rounding it out, Animation Domination adds some tankiness to Spider-Ham with a damage reduction by 1 to a standard minimum of 1. And then finally, he has Spider Nonsense, which allows him to reroll dice from physical or energy attacks, but with the added condition that if he takes any wounds, he drops the objective that he is holding. So here are my general thoughts regarding Spider-Ham. This is just my general opinion, right? He's an incredibly unique 2-threat with very high durability that will take some effort to kill, honestly. So what is the predicted play pattern I see with him? Probably grab an extract, sit on a back point, hiding behind terrain, or sitting on a point and tossing range 4 shocks on everyone while fishing for a push from Web Yoink once or twice a game. That's probably about it. The biggest thing to note on Spider-Ham is that he generates power only on his range 2 gainer. So he kind of has to get in there to get a lot of power. That's probably unlikely. So he won't be doing a lot with his kit throughout the game. Just a few small things, but impactful things. Now let's get into the deep, dark depths of comic books to find Spider-Man Noir coming to Marvel Crisis Protocol. This black and white variant of Peter Parker brings a new tanky style of web warrior to their roster. Spider-Man Noir is a standard 3-threat with a basic stat line, nothing crazy to note. His builder, the old one too, is a range 3 builder that adds 3 dice if he's attacked the defender once this turn, hence the name the old one too. This is similar to Ghost Spider's Spider Technique attack, and probably will see a decent amount of play. Crime Fighting Arsenal is a range 4 beam spender that passes out slow and shock if wounds are dealt. Honestly, this is a pretty nutty attack for a web warrior. It only costs 3 power and the potential to drop 2 extremely helpful conditions for the web warriors on multiple enemies is really, really nice. Hit the Pavement is a range 3 size 2 terrain throw. So instead of having a web line for movement like most other web warriors, Spider-Man Noir has a terrain throw. It's not bad, it's not great, probably just middle of the road, honestly. Finally, Noir's tankiness comes from Inured to Pain. It's a 1-cost superpower that allows him to reduce damage by 1 with no minimum, which is really nice and incredibly unique for the web warriors. And he also has the standard spider sense found on most web warriors. So my general thoughts on Spider-Man Noir: he's a super tanky 3-threat that can lay some beatdown as needed, but his lack of movement is really counter to general practice web warrior play, but his tankiness does potentially make up for that. So the old 1-2 does have an elusive trigger though, so there is something there for sure. I also love that they designated what Earth he's from, so that you can play another Peter Parker with him, which is pretty cool. Last but certainly not least, we have Silk Good Ol' Cindy Moon. This 4-threat is going to be a top tier addition to Web Warriors at first blush. Like, honestly, I look at her kit and I'm like, oh, yep, that's the standard Web Warrior character. She's a long mover with above average physical defense. The only downside is if it is a downside, she's a 4-threat. So just a little bit more threat being used on her kit. But she makes up with it with all the things on her kit. Spider Strike is a range 3 builder with a wild push, a la many other Web Warrior characters, but the difference is that the push is any direction, so that's pretty nice. Finger Spinnerets is where Silk's card starts to get incredibly fun. This is a range 3 beam gainer that passes out slow on wilds, so that's pretty nice. Then the Spectacular Spinning Ginny is her area 2 spinner that pushes defenders towards Silk short, and after it's all over, Silk could then place range 3. So push everyone in where she is and then run away to safety. Caught in the Web is Silk's reactive superpower that functions like any other trap superpower in the game. For the most part, someone ends a movement within range 3 of her and she rolls 4 dice, dealing damage on crits and wilds, and then Silk can advance short if she dealt damage with the superpower. So this uniquely combos well with the Spender, Spectacular Spinning Ginny, or Spider Strike. Silk Sense is by far one of the best versions of Spider Sense. She can reroll 2 dice on defense or dodges, including skulls, no matter the damage type. Doesn't need Miles' leadership for this. This is a very good defensive ability for her, and she will be living through a lot. Web of Ride is her final superpower that helps her generate power when enemies with a slow condition end movement, any movement, not just a move action, within range 3 of her. And then Silk gains 1 power. So she's generating power all throughout her kit as she's utilizing it throughout the game. Final thoughts on Silk. Man, my immediate gut reaction is that she's very, very good, but also has a ton of fun mechanics about her and probably has a lot of fun play and interactions on the table. She seems like with all the things that she has going on, it'll be a blast to kind of unlock her kit and play it on the table. She's another long mover that has some pretty viable defensive stats and superpowers that will be challenging for opponents to overcome, but she also has a ton of displacement in her kit, and Web Warriors love that. Albeit from attacks, but she still has some pretty strong potential. You know, she leans more into the engage, displace, run away playstyle for Web Warriors, but she can also be fairly reasonable in the normal run and hide playline for most Web Warrior games. My general box thoughts, one of the prevailing things about the box is that each character has the ability to give out slow, and that's pretty crazy because up to this point, no Web Warrior had the ability to do that. So all these characters uniquely interact with ASM's leadership quite well, but then also have the ability to pass out slow for those wonderful all webbed up turns. Another glaring thing to note about these 3 characters is the lack of superpowers that displace and lack of movement for themselves. Nonetheless, I think all 3 characters add some great value to the Web Warriors, but then also just Marvel Crisis Protocol as a whole. We'll also be looking at all of the new Team Tactics cards combined with this pack and the next Web Warrior pack together at a later date. So be on the lookout for that. But before I forget, if you're on the hunt for any affiliation tokens for your Web Warriors or any other affiliation in Marvel Crisis Protocol, or maybe some pre-marked mats to play on, jump over to the Midwest Protocol Etsy store to check those out. I'm James from Midwest Protocol. Thanks for watching, but now it's time to get back to gaming.